Hello. So in this video, we are going to discuss some most common methods of non-probability sampling. And in contrast to probability sampling methods discussed in the previous video, non-probability sampling does not include any kind of randomization. So this is how you can draw the borderline between those two broadly defined methods. So although there are more methods of non-probability sampling, we are gonna concentrate on quota sampling, snowball sampling, judgment sampling, and convenience sampling. So let's start with the quota sampling. You probably know what quota is. It's when you assign some share to some group. For instance, at least 50% of places in parliament should be occupied by women. So this is an example. So analogously, in this case, you assign some shares in your sample to representatives of different groups. And typically, you would like those shares to mirror the respective shares in the entire population. For instance, this is a well-known fact that approximately 50% of population consists of males and 50% of population consists of females. So to make sure that your sample is representative, you would like to assign 50% to males and 50% to women. There are much more variables you can use in order to assign some quotas. For instance, you might also hypothesize that income is quite an important variable, so you would divide people into groups according to the level of income, such as low, medium, or high. And then you can also divide them according to gender. So as the result, you will have 6 groups with respective proportion assigned to these groups. So this is the idea. As the result, you expect to have a sample with distribution similar to distribution in the entire population. The obvious advantage of this method is that it includes all the important subgroups. However, it might be subject to selection bias, because important subgroups is quite a subjective notion. So as a researcher, you decide what subgroups are important, but it does not guarantee that you specify them properly. So yeah, this kind of subjectivity might bias your sample. Another method is snowball sampling. So in this case, you find some participants for your survey and you expect them to encourage other people to participate as well. And in case of surveys with traditionally low response rate, it is especially convenient. I will give you an example. So consider a situation when you conduct your research about some innocent matters, like what kind of ice cream you prefer, or how often you make online purchases, and so on and so forth. So in this case, probably people will have no problem about sharing this kind of information with you. So it's relatively easy to select a sample using more conventional sampling methods we discussed before. Now imagine that you conduct your research or more controversial topic about illegal abortions or drug use or drug sale or prostitution. So in this case, keeping in mind that people might be potentially prosecuted, they would be less willing to participate. So it's not a good idea to, post something on Facebook like, hey, I'm conducting a research about drug sale in Warsaw, so if you sell drugs, please be so kind to participate. So in this case, it would be more conventional and more convenient for you to find a person engaged in this activity. So this person knows you have no connections to police and there will be no consequences. associated with participating in the survey. So this person might encourage other drug sellers, drug dealers to participate in the survey. So this is the idea. The obvious advantage is that, hey, it's still possible to collect some data, even though people might be unwilling to participate. By using this method, you can actually conduct your research. However, representativeness is quite questionable. You have no guarantee that your sample of drug dealers is a representative one. So you simply deal with what you've got. You have no opportunity to select drug dealers of different age, background, and stuff like this. Convenience sampling. So, as the name suggests, it is basically about conducting your survey based on responses from people who are willing and ready to participate. It's pretty biased, but at the same time, it's extremely cost efficient. For instance, you might create a post on Facebook like, hey, I am doing my project or I'm writing my thesis and I need you to respond. Here, it will cost you nothing and you will be able to collect a lot of responses within a relatively short period of time. However, it's a well-known fact that women are more likely to participate in survey like this. People who are more altruistic, more enthusiastic, are also more willing to participate in the survey. As a result, your sample is immediately biased. So you see the point. Typically, it's called self-selection bias, when people of some characteristics are more likely to participate, and it already implies that your sample consists of people of some characteristics, and it does not include people of some other characteristics. So basically, your sample will probably mostly consist of enthusiastic and altruistic females. So you see the point. I'm not trying to say it's bad, because as students, you might have very little opportunity to do any kind of more sophisticated sampling technique. You do not have money for paying people for participation. You do not have money to travel and collect responses or interviews personally, and so on. Everyone is well aware of this. However, it's also important so you realize disadvantages and limitations of the method. So once again, convenience sampling is great. It's very cost efficient. It might help you to collect the data within a short period of time. However, it's really important that you are aware of its limitations. And finally, we discuss purposive or judgmental sampling. Typically, in this case, a researcher picks observations himself or herself based on some desirable characteristics of the respondents. It's associated with a relatively low cost, it's convenient, and it's pretty appropriate for exploratory research. Here, exploratory research refers to qualitative or inductive research we discussed in the first lecture. So when you need to develop some initial understanding of the phenomena or some prior theory, it's pretty appropriate. However, at the same time, it's quite subjective because in this case, as a researcher, you pick respondents yourself and there is no guarantee that you are objective and there is little opportunity for generalization. So you cannot draw any general conclusions about, let's say, human behavior or human motivation based on sample designed using judgmental sampling technique. Again, it's not bad. You just have to realize limitations of this method and you have to understand when it is appropriate and when it's not appropriate. So that was it when it comes to non-probability sampling. I hope it was clear, and see you in the next lecture.